The problem with the big boxes, they can be overwhelming, but you end up forming this habit of just playing up and down them and then trying to find things on them. You know, you have a few bits on it, and that's where your licks go. Now, you might have come across this. This is all about connecting the things up. So the way that I've shown you before, and I've shown you how this works, is you'll have seen this one. Some call it the 2 and 3 method, because you have 2 notes on a string there, and then you have 3 notes here, okay? Now, we're starting on the flat 7 of the minor pentatonic, and that gives us the melody that I always think that this sounds like. Starry, starry night. Okay, so starry, starry night. We're all used to doing this, because if you know your box 1 where it lives here, what we do is we extend that. We can power up that by adding this bit at that side of it and this bit here. There's 5 notes there, guys. That's the flat 7, that's the root, that's the flat 3rd, that's the 4th, and that's the 5th, right? Okay? And then because of the way that the strings are tuned in perfect fourths, if you watch my lesson on the fretboard, battle ends and down goes Charles's father, you'll understand why the guitar strings are tuned that way. So we take this octave here, caged octave, this is an E-shaped octave, and then what we can do is we can find that flat 7 again here, and there's the root. You could call them diagonal pentatonics. They're as old as time, are these. But the thing is, there's some information that I feel that is missing. This is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to give it context. What we tend to do is we look for where box 1 is, or box 2 is, or wherever the box pattern is, and associate the 3, 2. This is what I call a rectangle and a leg, because look, there's a rectangle, and then if I extend it up a whole step, I get a leg. Right, now this is going to make more sense because I'm going to extend this as well. So I can take that up there. Now, going up onto this middle string pair, so this E and A string is a string pair. Then if I go to the D and the G string, it's a string pair. And then if I go from the B to the E string, that's a string pair as well. So you can hear it's the same thing. Now, if I go up from that flat 7 again on the D string, I use my D-shaped octave, that puts me in the position I need to be able to repeat the whole thing again. Right, now that works with the A minor chord that you may see here. So you may associate that shape there with box 1. It's a very useful thing to be able to do. You can then lead up into the chuck berry zone here. But then what we do is extend it that way. And then essentially what it means is we get the minor pentatonic on 3 string pairs. So that's 5 notes. That's the minor pentatonic starting on the flat 7. Then we've got the minor pentatonic starting on the flat 7 again. Then we go up again. And you can see the cool thing about that is we get to cover all this territory. And that seems to be where most people let it live. But there is more to it than that. And that's what I'm going to show you. Now, the other thing that happens is if we looked at box 2 of the minor pentatonic, but it is also box 1 of the major pentatonic. I'm going 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7, 4, 6, 5, 7, 5, 7 there, guys. And we need to learn that for the shapes. Let me just reiterate. This is where the shapes come in useful. The full 6-string box patterns come in useful. But we're not doing that today. We're doing something completely different. So let me just state that. I'm not ruling them out completely. Now, the other way that we could do this, if we take this idea of a rectangle and extending it up a step with a leg, we can reverse that idea, and what happens is we get the major pentatonic instead. So say here, this was in A minor. Now if I want the major, what I do is I switch it around and I do the leg first. So I go leg, there, and then what I do is I put the rectangle on that string pair. Now, if I finish it off on the next string pair there, you should be able to hear. You've you've got a reference there. You know what that song is. Now what happens is that note there takes me into my next string pair, which is cool. Now there's a little tricky bit with this, that it switches over here onto the B string, and we have to compensate that pattern ever so slightly. To get onto this one, I do leg, there we go. So that's the whole pattern finished. So it's My Girl. So what melody do we have to remember the minor pentatonic sound? Starting on the flat 7, that is, yeah? Starry, starry night. It's Vincent, isn't it? I just call it Starry, starry night. But it is Vincent. If it's the major, we've got My Girl. So just log those in your brains. Okay, so that's just showing you the way that it is commonly used. And what happens is people jump up the octaves. So what you're doing is a very limiting way of doing it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you. I'm going to switch over to pen and paper for this one, guys. This is actually from the C shape. This is the back end portion of a C shape. It's a C shape second inversion. What we get is 5R3. 5R3, guys. So this pattern that I've got here, don't mistake this as being fixed at the second and first fret. This is a movable idea. This is completely movable because it's all about moving the shape. If we were to tie it in with the shape that it's from, this is the C major chord, okay? But what I can do is I can put a 5th in there. This, it looks a bit like an E shape, doesn't it? If I take my first finger off, you can see it looks like an E shape because it's the 5R3. It's that second inversion, okay? We're going to start off with the major shapes. Essentially, we're going to go down in string sets. So this one here uses 5th, the root, and a 3rd of that C shape there. And like I say, this is completely movable. Move it up here, look. There you can see 5R3. It's still going to be the same thing. So not only are you learning your scales, you are learning your triads as well. Because the triads are going to give context. Doesn't matter where I put this. Yeah, it's still the same shape. It's a 5th, root, 3rd. Now, if I know where my root is, then I can name the chord. Now, that happens to be on an F. And if I play that there, I know that's an F in second inversion. But the thing that I really want to know about this is that root, because that's why 5R3 is so important, guys. It's where that root note is. So if we've got a major chord, we play a major scale on top of it. Like I was saying the other week, it's chords on chords. That's one approach. We put triads on top of triads. We can put extensions on top of triads. We can superimpose triads. We can do lots of different things with how we put blocks of notes on top of blocks of notes. But what about scales on top of blocks of notes? So this is the way I'm thinking about it. So finding that root note is going to be super, super useful. Now, the thing with the string pairs as well is not only do we have these string pairs here, the E and the A string here, that's a string pair. Those are tuned to a 4th. Just for those who don't know this, those are tuned to a 4th. The D and G string, tuned to a 4th. The B and the E string are tuned to a 4th as well. But we have a subset. That's in the book. And the subset is these here, right? The A and the D string, they're tuned to a 4th as well. So any patterns that we find here are going to work on that string pair as well. Now, the reason it goes wrong here between the G and the B string is that's not tuned to a 4th, that's tuned to a major 3rd. So if I wanted to play that between the G and the B string, I have to compensate. So I'm going to go box, but I have to skew it. It ends up being a rhomboid. And then I'm still going to put the leg on. You can hear I still get the same tune. Starry, starry night. We still get that same thing here. Now the cool thing is, because we know this is the flat 7, we know that's going to be our root note. I played the minor there. Now what if it's the major? I have to do a compensation on this as well. This starts with leg, then rectangle. So I do my leg, but the rectangle shifts into a rhomboid shape as well. You'll probably be aware of this from your pentatonic when you do this. see? When you're moving up into the house of blues, it's nice to be able to know where you're going, because sometimes it's hard with the box patterns to see where the transitions happen between them. And what this does is it helps you to move through the transitions as well. So that is the major pentatonic, but that's just showing you how that disrupts it. We're going to figure that out as well in today's lesson, but let's tie this back into this pattern here. Now this is major. We're going to put the major pentatonic on here. So let me just put the scale formula, major pentatonic, so that you know what it is. And I'll put the scale degrees on here. So we've got a root, a second, third, fifth, and we have a sixth. I'm going to put this on here. Remember, the major pentatonic, we go leg, rectangle. The leg takes us up to the second. I'm going to put some colours on this. We put the second on, we need to put the third on. Now we already have the third here, which is interesting because we can leverage that if we want, but we're going to put it just here. Then we need the fifth. Remember, the power chord shape looks like this. There's the root, there's the fifth. That would be the power chord shape just there. And then the sixth goes here. So hopefully you can see we get the leg and then we get the rectangle. Now this is really cool. Right, so I'm going to use this position here because I'm just going to use the original C shape here, 5R3. Now what I do is if I use this root, because I know this goes 5R3, guys. This is why these second inversions are so cool. 5R3. From the root, you can hear now that I have a position to put a scale on. I use the root note of this triad, second inversion triad. So when I'm playing a C chord here, I can then launch from a chord and I have another place to do it. I'm not going like this. I'm not thinking, all right, I'm in C here. So now I have to move up to box one or somewhere else. I'm in the vicinity because I have a note. This is the common note between the triad and the pentatonic shape. So that's what we need to happen. And here's the cool thing, guys. I think to myself, right, well, it's in E flat. Somebody says, oh, you're soloing in E flat. Okay, fifth, root, third. There's the root. Yeah? That puts me there. And then there's the shape. And I know that the full shape is going to live there. I can play this with all the major chords in the key. This works on chords 1, 4, and 5. You can treat them differently as well. But this works on all 1, 4, and 5 because at their heart they are major. Let's have a look at the next one that we're going to do. And I'm going to keep this in the same position. So this is the C shape. Going across, I'm going to go fifth, root, third. That's on the E, A, and D string. So what I need to do is I need to move that over one string and work out the permutations for this. So we go fifth, root, third. And now we've got an E shape, so we're still tapping into cage. You'll recognize these from the master triad shapes. So now all I need to do is I need to apply that same idea here. And we are not limited now to just playing this on string pairs, because the string pairs exist in subsets as well. So not only do we have the E and A string pair, the D and G string pair, and the B and E string pair, we've got an A and D string pair. But something funny happens here, but we have to compensate for it. But let me just write the scale out here as well, guys. So root, second, third, we've got the fifth, we've got the sixth here. Now this is going to be super, super, super useful. I think the easiest way that I think about it is coming from this position here. Look at that. This is an F sharp chord, a bar chord. All right, and I don't even need to put it on as a bar chord. I can cheat and put that finger down there. But this is what I'm thinking. When I strip it all back, guys, look. I've got that, yeah? It's the same thing. Bless them all. Yeah, if you want to hear the major triad in second inversion, bless them all. But we know, because it's a second inversion, we're going to have fifth, root, third. So we take the root. Now all I do is I go up the leg. It's easy enough to go from your first finger and then drop in the rectangle. Or what you can do is draw the leg out first, slide into the rectangle. So look, it doesn't matter where you are. using the E shape. Let's move on to the next shape. If you know how your 5/3 shapes go across, and this is why these three are massively important, the A shape is the next one. We've got the fifth, we've got the root, we've got the third. Let me draw this on the sheet here. This is going up in PDF Club. Fifth root, third. And we're looking at this note here. There's the root. So what I do is I go up a step and I go up to the third because I know I'm going to move into my rectangle here. But what I've got to do is I've got to look at that little kink in the tuning there between the G and the B string, and then I've got to modify that rectangle now becomes a rhomboid. So what I do is I put the fifth here and I put the sixth here. We get this skewed shape. We get this. Now when I play my A chord now, and it doesn't matter where I play it, I'll play it anywhere. You can see that wherever you got that shape, you just think to yourself, where do I launch? And I love this because the third finger is a natural finger for launching off into shapes. So we take that there. We're going to do the leg. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where it lives. That's a C chord. Going along, we've used up the E, A and D string. We've used up the A, D and G string. We've done the D, G and B string. And now we're on to the last three. We've got the second. We've got the third. Now we're back on track here with the major pentatonic, the root, second, third, fifth, sixth. That's the major pentatonic. But what we're doing is we're tracking that root note on the chord shape to tell us where to place the pattern. Okay, 5/3. Back on the perfect fourth between the B and the E string. So now I've got a scale. I'm down here. Where do you launch your lead? You've got this finger. Okay. And then my chord is just underneath. And then somebody says, well, after that D chord, it goes to a G. So you go there and you go. The shape is the thing. We move the shape and we attach the scale to it. The other week we did pentatonic elevator triangles. The elevator triangles is a way of navigating through this as well. And hopefully you can see them. Look, there's an elevator triangle there. Look. Boom, boom, boom. So you've got what you've got, not what you've also got is you've got your rhomboid shapes, but I think the triangles are probably going to be a little bit easier to navigate your way through this on the G and the B string. So just a different set of rules on that string pair. We've just looked at those 5/3 shapes, second inversions, and we've got 4 string sets that we put this leg and rectangle major pentatonic pattern on. So we can launch that anywhere. We can think of it as 2 most common bar chord shapes. Yeah, so there's the 5/3 there. Here's the A shape. Yeah, but the thing is that I really want to tie in this idea that if you use the L7 grid there, that shows you the 6 chords in your major key there, major triads, minor triads, you can build them, shapes there. So that's just tying it in with the L7. If you want to find a place to put it, know what key you're in, because this is what it is. You find your grid, you find your shapes, then you attach the scales. Let me just recap and just show you this, guys. So 5th root, 3rd. Okay. This is a major. Yeah. Okay. We take that down, a string set. Right. We've not changed chord shape either. Still the same shape, which is kind of cool. I like that. Okay, now what we do is we do change chord shape on this. 5th root, 3rd. And then on the D shape. You've got to admit that's cool, because essentially, instead of being trapped in this idea, Just following the octaves up the string pairs, yes? That's good for going distance, but where do you start with the shapes? And this applies to all of the shapes. I think that's pretty cool. Now, this isn't all of the puzzle, because we've got another triad that we want to look at with this, guys, because I want to be fully in depth with this. These here are all 5R3s. We've got 4 string sets that are using 5R3s, but we need a root position one. Now, this gives us other options. These 4 are absolutely marvellous. I'm just going to name these shapes here. Now, this one here, what shape does that look like? It looks like the bottom half of a G chord, because it's your G shape. This is what's different about these. These ones here, these are all 5R3s. These here are going to be root, 3rd and 5th triads. So we've got root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th. It's exactly the same shape, guys. Look. So I could take the G chord here. There. And I'm just playing it in its natural position, in its easiest position to see. You can see that that's where it lives. But we're looking for that. We're looking for the root, 3rd, 5th. Now, if I wanted to do it in A, all I need to do is picture that part of the shape there. Look, if you can see the G shape, or if you imagine that you had a capo on there, transposing the whole thing. So now I go. So you have the G shape. But hang on, are we done with this idea? We're still looking for that root note there. If I put my head note on there, what shape does it look like? If I had another finger there. You've got to relate them to the chords, because then they'll fit on top and you'll play the correct sounds. Pentatonics are skeletons. Pentatonics are 5-note scales. Diatonic scales are 7-note scales. If you saw the lesson, guys, I did on adding 2 notes to the pentatonic box patterns. And all you did was to turn the pentatonics into modes, you added 2 extra notes. So you think about it, this idea, it ends up becoming something bigger. And it's going to help you to see notes that are close. You'll see the scale degrees, and you might think to yourself, actually, I can add that to the chord and make it into an add 9 or whatever, like I was talking about last week with chord shapes. So we've got the C shape. Let's draw it out again. Let's do the same thing. Root, 2nd, 3rd. If you're thinking to yourself, yeah, Ricky, we get it. We understand the shape and everything else. You don't need to draw all of them out. I do need to draw all of them out. I'll tell you for why. Because if something is nice and boring, of understanding what the shape is and seeing the shape, it's like someone saying to you the same thing over and over again until you know it. You just know it. So I'm drilling this, and I do not apologize for repeating this, because you need to see all the permutations, and it needs to feel just a little bit like, yeah, I know it. And then because you know it, next time you pick up your guitar and you try to implement it, it'll be a no-brainer to add this to your shapes. This is the thing. Reinforce. That's what I always do. So I can play my C chord now. I did this earlier, didn't it? If you think about it, 5R3. That's my second inversion. There's the full C shape. So now I can see where it lives in the proper, let's call it the proper C shape here, right? Okay, so that's the C shape. Let's move along. We're going to move along another string pair. Who knows what shape this comes from? It's good to work these 3 shapes together and see how similar they are. And you'll notice that 5th there, look at the G shape, look where the root, 3rd and 5th is, and how that fret separates them. Look at the root, 3rd and 5th on the C shape, and look how that fret separates them. And then look at the root, 3rd and 5th here on this triad, and how that fret has disappeared, because that 5th is now on the B string, and we've hit the compensation zone. We have to move this along. So that's a C shape, all right, and this one is an E shape. I'm going to play it on this G here. So this is a G bar chord, but I'll disassemble it, get rid of the bar, okay, and I'll put my first finger on there to get that 5th, and then I'm going to move that finger down there, and you can see that's where I get that shape from. This is my root, this is my 3rd, this is my 5th. So if I take this now, same pattern. We only need 2 patterns. Let me write them in. It isn't hard. It's very repetitive, but you've got to do this. Repetition is your friend. Repeat it to defeat it, guys. Repeat it to defeat it. And this is going to happen anywhere. So if you've got this, You know you're in the key of G? Where do you start? I'm keeping the licks very, very simple. So it's a root position. These are all root positions though, if you want to think about it. That's a root position, root position, root position. So next shape, and this is going to be borrowing from the A shape. Well, if we think about the A shape, look at the A shape, it goes root, third, fifth. And that's the part of the shape we're going to use. We're going to go root, third. Oh, cracky, I've done this on an open string, but it's okay. We know where it is. I'm just going to cross that over onto that. Put a line through that just to show you. Root, third, fifth. We go second, third, fifth, sixth. This is from the A shape. Sorry, my bad. I've made a mess of this. I've not compensated. We end up with the rhomboid. It's because I didn't compensate there. Because I was focusing more on the pattern. Right, so, because we're on the G string. Right, so, and that's the shape. Now, what's ended up happening is we get all of those shapes. Those shapes are all there, guys. We've got 8 patterns there now. We've got a super useful way of tackling the major pentatonics and applying them to the triads. And there's only 2 triads that we're doing there as well. Now, we're going to start with another sheet. We're going to apply the same logic to this, and we're just going to move across in the string sets. But now we're looking at the minor tonality, because remember what I said about this one? These are majors. These work on chords 1, 4, and 5. Doesn't matter what shape it is, where it is on the neck, it's going to work on 1, 4, 5 in the 5R3s or the root position, root third fifths. So we're going to do the minor pentatonic. If we're looking at it in the key, we've got chords 2, 3, we've got chord 6, and this is in the major key. So remember, these will invert, and if you look at the Rosetta Stone video, then that will make sense. They will invert into the minor tonality. So we're going to have the root, flat third, fourth, fifth, and we get flat 7. That's the formula for the minor pentatonic. Now we may know it as this. What we do is root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7. But remember, we started this on the flat 7. We've got to be able to track this root. Don't think that this is the root, because it isn't. You've got your first finger on for your root if it's a major pentatonic. Remember, because we got Vincent, Starry, Starry Night. Now, what shape are we going to go off on this? Well, the first shape that we had before was fifth, and this is going to help you with your inversions as well. Now remember, we had the third here, but because this is minor, we have to put the flat third here instead. But one thing doesn't change. That root note still exists in it. Now, what happens with this one that's interesting is that this pattern, it kind of lives just outside the chord. It's almost on the periphery of the shape. The minor is nested within it. That's what we're going to think about. So we've got that root note there. I'm going to put the flat 7 in just to make sure that you can see this pattern. I've got the flat 7, the root. I've got the flat third. Now I need a fourth, which is going to go here. And then I get the fifth. So now what happens is, remember this one was rectangle and leg. I'm going to use a different colour actually. I'm going to use blue because blue is a sad colour. Because it's nestled in, it can be a bit trickier to see this. Now, PDF clubbers, don't worry, I've done some fancy schmancy versions of this. There's the fifth, there's the root, and there's the flat third. So you can see how the triad shape fits inside that there. Now, this is not a common shape that you're going to play. Now, if I play this here, this is going to be a D minor. You might not really have seen this played like this before. But listen, there's a D minor. But that's my pattern, and I know I'm thinking to myself, that's my root note from a D minor chord. But I am definitely thinking of this as being a C shape. There's the arpeggio. And what I'm thinking is, it's all about that string there, where the root lives. Because it's either going to be a C shape, C minor, there, going back, fifth root, flat third, or it's going to be an A shape, going forwards. Okay, so we know that that's there. And I can see where that lives. Fifth root, third, flat third, sorry. So that is the first one that we're looking at on the E, A, and D string set. Let's move the shape over. As we move the shape over, you'll start to see that these shapes is fifth root, flat third. Doesn't look familiar yet, does it? Oh, well, it might do. If we put the head nut on it, we can see what shape it looks like. And I think of this as being a C minor shape. And this goes a long way to understanding caged minors. A lot of stuff is about caged, but it's always majors. It's always about the majors. And I'm guilty of that myself, but with my students, I teach the caged minors as well. This is me showing you. You see how this works. This is how we modify those caged majors into caged minors as well. Now, it's embedded again, guys. I'm going to use this yellow here to show you where the 5R3 is. I'll do it on this one as well. You can see where the triad shape lives. It's a minor triad, but in second inversion. Right, let's fire through these. We've dispensed with the A, the D, and the G string pair here. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the fifth, the root, and then look, we've got to compensate. Remember, in an A shape, the major third would be here, so we've got to put the flat third here. Now that's a more common shape. What shape does that look like? That was the head note. Make sure that you know where the root note is, which is easy because we know that the root note is in the middle of the 5R3, even if it's a flat 3. A minor, okay? So we know that the flat 7 is a whole step below. So there's the A minor. Can you see how it goes a little bit wonky? Right, root third, I'm going to put the fourth, and then I'm going to put the fifth here. We've got the compensation thing happening again, which we have to account for. So the rectangle becomes a rhomboid again. Here's the cool thing with this. You look at this here. Look, you've got a little triangle. Little triangles hook up to big triangles, if you know the Pentatonics lesson about that. So anywhere where I've got this shape here, this is a B flat minor. I'm not bothered about the chord. It makes you fear no chords, yes? C minor, okay? Let's look at this. C sharp minor. We've got this. And I can see where the shape comes in. That's the A minor shape done there. This is the E minor shape. Then on this one, we get a fifth, the root. Now, ordinarily, the D shape, the third would go here, but we need the flat third to go here. And now I'm back over onto perfect fourths because I'm between the B and the E string, right? So I've got rectangle leg. So we've got the flat 7, we've got the fourth here, we've got the fifth here. Not the rhomboid. That only happens over the G and the B, but you need to be able to see that as well. So we've got so you play the shape. This is the shape. There's the triad. There's the pentatonic that's embedded in it. Now, what I like about this as well, guys, is if we're talking about tension and release, the note that releases is the root note. If we go here, that's my D minor chord, fifth root. Now, I want to reserve that for ending my phrase. Now, you see, I've got the flat third there. This is a flat 7. I've not resolved it yet. And what happens is the triad shows me where those notes of tension are and where they're not, yeah? Flat 7, I've got that flat third there. Fifth wants to go down to the root note because it's very cadential. Now, the curious thing is, guys, this is going to change how you actually see it. If you use the regular way of using this, remember I showed you right at the beginning, I think is a very limited way of doing it, using string pairs. Like this. Well, that's me in the key of A minor. Now, if I think to myself, oh, hang on, I've got an A minor chord here. There's the A minor chord. I can play that in all these different positions, and now I have these little hotspots where the scales are living inside it. Now, What we've done there so far is we've looked at the 5R3s, the second inversion minor triads. Guess what we're going to do now? We're doing the root position. This is a little bit different. We changed the pattern ever so slightly. The rectangle and the leg kind of falls apart a bit here because we're into another shape. What we do, and I think this is the easiest way to do it, is we look at the root and then we go across and we put in the 4th and the flat 7. Now what happens is, I'm into another shape here, and this is a trapezoid. And that trapezoid, we need to link it to the root note, and we link it by that there. So essentially, we end up with those 3 connecting, a triad there, and we get these extra 2 notes here. If you think about it, a triad with an extra 2 notes, it's 5 notes. Pentatonic. Pentatonic, 5 tones. Okay, so I'm going to play this here. This is an A minor. So there's an A minor there. And I get to employ parts of the shapes that I already know belong to the key. A minor. C major is going to figure in it somewhere as well. Look, looks like the C major at the top. But we're starting on this root position triad. This is a G minor shape. When we're looking at caged, this is what I would think of as being the G minor shape. We'll just add these extra 2 notes and then build the trapezoid and bridge over to this, okay? Let's take it over another string. This is a C minor shape. Hang on, we've already encountered that there. So this becomes another way to play that chord. Let's put the trapezoid in. We put the trap in, and then we just link it to the root there, just to show the path. This is a D minor. And then you can see this, a bit of stretching. But look. Trapezoid. Which is a tone, whole step, with a minor third. But what you get is this lovely third on the top. This is the C minor shape. And that makes sense because if we think about the acronym caged, C minor shape, yes, A minor shape comes after it. C, A, G, E, D. Got this. And then that enables you to hit those money notes with that chord there. Right, we're getting there, guys. And then we're going to compensate. So that 5th comes up here. This is coming from the E minor shape. 4th, and then we're going to that flat 7. But what we're going to do is compensate again, flat 7. And then what happens is that trapezoid shape reverses. But you can also see in there, we get a large triangle as well. And then we connect that up there. All right, so now wherever we see this shape, now you can see that in your pentatonic box. Right, that's cool. Oh, look. I can hook it up to that one as well, because this is where it all starts to mesh. Let's move on over to the next string set. We have to compensate with the 4th, but because we're back onto a perfect 4th one here. There. Right, and we end up back on this regular job here with the trapezoid shape, but that link up still works here. There's the shape. You can see it's from the A minor shape, is this, yeah? There's my root. We take the pattern there. Now, actually, I'd probably start that with this because, look, guys, if you can't move away from the box patterns, it's just a chunk from box pattern 4. If I play it for you here, you go. There, I played it as a box pattern, but you lose sight of where it is. You just end up going. Doing it like this. Aimlessly noodling. But the thing is, if you know that the chord is there, that's a D minor. You know that you can. Yeah? A minor shaped D minor. I've got the root, the flat third, and the fifth there. And like I say, with all these shapes, these are all transposable. And it becomes one of those things where people say, all right, okay, B minor. Okay? You might think to yourself, oh, bugger, I don't know where that is. There's the trapezoid. And then we hook it up onto a pentatonic triangle. I can move using my pentatonic triangles then up that awkward G and B string pair. And then I can flesh it out into other scale patterns that I already know. Right, we've done the majors, we've done the minors. Now, here's where it comes in useful. It's an E shape, okay? But going off what we know, it's a major. So I'm going to use a major pentatonic with it. I find the root in the 5R3. So there's the root. Now, this is the bit that you're missing. The rectangle and the leg is fine. Everybody teaches the rectangle and leg, but this is the bit that is missing. What we do is a leg, then a rectangle, and then what happens is we put another leg on it, which is why I don't call it 2, 3 or any of that stuff, because it doesn't make sense in that regard for me. If I take this here, what happens is root, second, third, fifth, sixth. If I know that's my sixth, I know a minor third above it is going to be my root note, and that's going to be my money note to finish what it is that I'm saying on guitar. Yeah, so look. I get to finish my statement. But what's also cool, guys, is I'm on another root note. Now I can repeat the whole process again. Now I've got a different way to move up. I'm using the same idea, but I'm fixing my chords onto it. Look, I know that this is there. This is my A shape. Drops onto my A shape. Now onto this string pair, look. I haven't got enough frets. If I had enough frets, then I could use it. I'm not just covering that much of the neck, I'm covering all of it. And this is what happens with those major ones. And I'll just do a little drawing for this. That's the pattern that we have so far. But we want to be able to take it up here. And if I take it up here, the distance between this and this here is a minor third. And that becomes my pattern. And it gives me a new place that I can jump onto now. Now I'm on the D string. And then if I know where I am on my D string, then I can employ this pattern and then extend it. If I move on to another string, I can use different patterns and extend them. So if I was doing it with this open E note here, so open E, leg, rectangle, long leg. You could call it a long leg if you want. Right, now I'm back at the beginning of the pattern again, guys. Look, so leg, rectangle, I've gone up here. Look how far I've covered. This is the missing part of the puzzle, guys. It isn't just that pattern, and it's the same with the minor. So we have two legs on the rectangle, and that's the way we can look at that one there. G. I want to end it, my phrase. B.B. King thing. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking, B.B. King did that thing where he'd play the root note. He'd restate the root note at the end of a phrase. Yeah, that whole thing about sliding a note down. I thought, well, how do you do that? And I thought, oh, hang on, so I'm in C. It shows me where the notes are. And then I think to myself, right, I'll just start again. And then I just join them back up again. So what you're going to do is you're going to put these together, join them up. I think if you mess around with this, you'll find yourself playing the box patterns less, because these little modular patterns, they're more musical. That's what the whole point is. If you want to do some lead stuff, you want to be more musical.